Silence no more. Silence no
Well, hello, I'm Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priest for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, on today's program, I am going to pose some very interesting questions to our guest. And right now, at the beginning of the program, I'm going to give you a question, but we're not going to answer it till near the end of the program. So you're going to have to stick with us. And here it is. You hear about a lot of Hollywood stars who, you know, say they don't regret their abortion. But guess what? There's two sides to this story. And I'm going to tell you about some Hollywood stars from the past who you'll be surprised at that had abortions. You're not going to believe it, but I'll give you a hint. One of those stars was famous for singing a song about Over the Rainbow. And at the end of the program, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But joining me now, of course, is my dear friend and the super duper expert on how do we heal women, men, and families from abortion is Dr. Teresa Burke, founder of Rachel's Vineyard. Teresa, welcome to the program.
Hi, Janet. How are you?
I'm great. Well, like I just teased everybody here on the program, at the end, we're going to talk about that star I referred to singing Over the Rainbow and how her experiences with abortion were not over the rainbow. But tune in, brothers and sisters, at the end. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So, Teresa, with Rachel's Vineyard, we tend to focus on the woman a lot. And just recently in the media, several stars, women came out and said, I'm so glad I had that abortion. I mean, one of them was at an awards show recently. And she stood up saying, yes, if I had that baby, it would have interfered with my career. And I don't regret. I'm here for women's choice and this and that. And can you just explain for us the dynamic that's going on there? Because, you've been doing this work for many decades. And what is it, close to what, 30, 40 years now, Teresa? It's getting older and older, right? That you've been doing it. So when a woman stands up so adamant like that this was the best thing that happened to me, aborting my baby, what's going on there exactly?
Well, there's a word for this denial, as we know, but also a reaction formation. Like if there's any grief there, you have to push it away as quickly and swiftly as possible as a way to survive it. And I know for a fact that there's many people who've come into Rachel's Vineyard who would have defended abortion rights till the cows crowed, right? But something happens in their life where their memories and feelings are triggered open, and it could be something like a sickness. It could be wanting to have a child later and you can't. It could be seeing children the age that your child would be, and it's a very painful reality. So it's almost like they have to defend and proclaim and be known as spokesperson. But even, and I might have shared this before, even when I teach in a hospital where people are dying in a hospice program, the nurses will tell me after the seminar that they see this every day. They might have been fine with their abortion their whole life, but that moral and that spiritual injury has a way of coming up. And that's why we say that women do suffer and men suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, which means it could be decades before they have their day of reckoning where they realize the loss. So while she's an actress and busy with all her movies and songs and whatever it is that she's doing, that's a great distractor. But in those days of being alone, being Christmas, and everybody else has families around, those women and men who've lost children to abortion can experience the consequences, as all their friends are surrounded by families and loved ones, and even children to take care of them in their old age. So this does come up, and I think that people who go through life childless, there are many lonely days that they don't speak of. They're kind of those unspeakable injuries, but they're soul groans. And in time, they end up on our retreats. And we hear what it's been like for them, even though they would have defended abortion rights. But this is the moral injury that at some point you got to grapple with.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what people don't understand is and it's basically, and I've seen this at the March for Life in Washington when we're there and the women are standing up giving their testimonies, and then these women who are part of the National Organization of Women are so pro-abortion. They're trying to scream down these voices who've been healed. And 2 years ago, the last time we were actually in Washington, Teresa, we were on the platform there in front of the Supreme Court, and these young girls actually clung to the rail trying to block the women speaking.
Yeah.
And I was saying to myself, oh my goodness, I bet you they had an abortion and they just can't stand listening to the truth here. And you had to see, they stuck clinging like this and trying to block the stories for about 20 minutes. But I watched one of them, and suddenly, because you have to hear the women, they're telling their story one after the other after the other. So they're there for 20 minutes. But one of them, all of a sudden, her facial expression changed and her eyes welled up with tears. And so I said to myself, I guarantee you, we finally broke through to her. Would you say that was what was going on there? I mean,
Yeah, the efforts to ward off grief is part of the survival mode. That's why they're fighting. That's a fight mode of trauma. It's a survivor mode. So they don't have to think, they don't have to feel, but there's cracks in the pavement, of course we know. And by hearing those testimonies, we know that people can identify with a piece or another of someone's story. So the testimonies from the Silent No More Awareness campaign are really a powerful way of breaking denial. And I've been at those marches, I've been at those rallies where you're right. With a megaphone, they're shouting in your face so that the stories can't be heard, sort of so the screams and the tears can't be heard either. And there's a problem. There's really a problem when this ideology is trumping humanity's natural response to the loss of a child, the death of one's child, and making it impossible for them to have their grief legitimized. And I think that those suffering in the aftermath of abortion have something very compelling to teach us, even as women or feminists, about the oppression in a society that forces them to be flattened, literally, in the name of freedom, to undergo this destructive death experience as a way to be empowered. I don't think that's the way that women experience abortion, and that's part of perpetrating the lie to cling to that and say, "Oh, it was the best thing I ever did. It was the," you know, that's clearly not even a human response, because we wouldn't say that if there was a shooting in an elementary school or a child is lost in other circumstances. People wouldn't be out there celebrating it or lighting up the World Trade Center, for God's sake, to remember the celebration of death. It's such a truth turned on its head. And I think that we're seeing that more and more in the culture as the totalitarian ideology of what we need to believe, that this is an act of empowerment instead of an emotionally destructive, wrenching, heart gutting, body gutting experience.
right. Well, and if you think back to, I think it was last year when the latest Trump appointments to the Supreme Court. Now, he got three in, Amy Coney Barrett. Um, there was like all this outrage, and also with Justice Kavanaugh. You remember all that outrage. And there was one scene when they announced that they were confirmed. These women stormed the doors of the Supreme Court, and they were actually screaming, howling, and clawing at the doors of the court. It was caught all on camera in the news. And to me, that was a cry of pain, wasn't it? I mean, they were screaming and crying like that because they feel abortion, Roe v. Wade is going to fall now. But wouldn't you say that was more of a reaction to probably that they might have been had abortions themselves, and this was like some kind of desperate crying out?
Yeah, it is so desperate, and I think you can see that in the faces, in the rhetoric. It's desperate to try to keep hold of something that they believe is empowerment. And you and I both know there's a whole nother side of it. And people run from that side. That's why the addiction rates are so high. Smoking pot, alcoholism, all these things become the ritual of that grows along, getting bigger and bigger in people's lives after they've lost their child. So instead of raising the child, their addiction grows alongside them. And we've seen this in the research. It's well been proved of the higher rates of addiction and self-destructive behaviors, but people don't necessarily connect those symptoms or that desire to numb or the fight and the advocacy and the causes that they engage in as a place to displace their anger and their rage over what's happened.
Wow. Yeah. So for someone who's watching right now, and I think everyone has a few people they know in their families um, who they suspect might have had abortion. Like they're looking at their behavior. Like, why are they clinging so much to this right to abortion, or their behavior seems off? What advice can you give someone who wants to desperately help a family member who they feel is hurting? What can they do?
I I believe that just inviting them into an experience of healing, because you can see the angst in their face. You can see that they're not in a place of peace. You can see the amount of that they drink or the drugs that they take or the repeated relationships that are not fulfilling. They are having trouble attaching, trusting. Like those symptoms are just everywhere and they're kind of textbook. So if you see the symptoms, recognize it as hurt. Even the fight, you can recognize as a symptom of the survivor mode of trauma, fight or flight. You can't talk about it or you want to fight about it because that doesn't allow dialogue. And also, even in the media, there's an intolerance of a diversity of responses. So they're not very inclusive in recognizing that there's people who are grieving after their abortion. They have a right to feel what they feel without being shouted down and told not to feel it, or that they shouldn't feel it, or that something's wrong with them.
So now, of course, for brothers and sisters to know, the beautiful website is rachelsvineyard.org. That's where all Teresa's information is there, the retreat schedule. But like, for example, I know someone in particular who I know very well, a good friend. I know she knows I know she's had an abortion because, people tend to, because of my work, kind of confide in me. And several of her family know she's had this abortion. And we're talking like maybe, oh, this happened 40 years ago. She's never gone to healing. She and you could see, Teresa, the behavior. It's like clear as could be for us to recognize. She overdoes everything now for her living children. Overbuys at Christmas, overdoes everything, like has to be the overachieving mother and grandmother, okay, to her kids and her grandchildren. And we're trying to get her to go on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat. We've invited, but she keeps making excuses. Oh, I'm not ready. Oh, I've dealt with that before. Oh, it's like keep brushing it aside. But I see, like, it's textbook, the behavior. It's like, oh my goodness, like you really need to get healed. Okay, so now I'm like, work with you. We kind of know we're on the inside track. So someone else watching must say, well, if Janet can't get her to a retreat, how am I supposed to get my family member to a retreat? Like, what can we do to kind of say to them, listen, let's just do this together and here's some dates. What works for you? I mean, how can you finally nail them down is what I guess I'm asking to get them to go.
I don't think that we can, nor should we nail anyone down, because we can't force healing on someone. That's something that they have to choose. And it's a sad thing is that we can't want it more than they do. All we can do is encourage, invite, offer the retreat as a gift, offer to support them and go with them if they're afraid, tell them that they deserve to heal, point out the things that you're aware of when you're really close to say you're just exhausting yourself. You're always overcompensating. You're trying to prove yourself. And I believe this is related to your loss. And, we know that there's a damage to the maternal identity after someone's lost a child in abortion. And those efforts to prove, they are exhausting. And you can only do that for so long, Janet, before it catches up to you. And then sometimes, like I said earlier, some people are willing when there's a crisis or when their health is failing or when they can't spin it all anymore, you know? And that's, I think God allows um allows sometimes for the natural consequences of people just not being able to hold up the denial anymore. And it's at that moment that you've always been there saying, and sometimes there's much more openness. Of course, we hate to see people hit that point where they're crumbling, you know. We'd love to see them enjoy life. And that's the other message, that life is short.
Right.
Reconcile this now. Give yourself some peace. Bring down the dial of all the need to stay busy and avoid this, because sometimes it's an avoidance response. And that I'm just here for you whenever you're ready. I'm here for you. And I'm going to keep reminding you that, because I believe that in time that you'll want the same thing that we all want for you.
Well, Teresa, I'm going to keep trying, and if I'm successful, I'll let you know. But there are several people I've been working on for a long time, but I'm going to keep inviting. Right? You said keep the invitation, right?
I've been on some retreats where I hear, because a retreat leader might be one of those people who just keeps calling and saying, you know, you expressed an interest, you haven't come yet, you know, and they just keep coming. And on the retreats, I hear, I knew she wouldn't stop bugging me, so I came just to get her off my back. I don't like that approach, but I know that some people use it, and it works for them, and people end up in retreat because of it, because it's your faithfulness in loving them so much that you care and you want them to address an area that they're going to have much relief and peace in. And then you can get off the crazy wheel of proving your motherhood all the time.
Well, I'm glad you said the crazy wheel because that's what it reminds me of. They're like a hamster in that wheel, going around, or the merry-go-round, because they're keeping this overcompensating for this loss. And I have to say, in all these years of having served on teams, been on retreats with you and others, I have never seen one person at the end of the weekend say, I regret being here. They're always saying, oh my goodness, I should have done this so much sooner. Why did I sit with this burden on my back for so long? I should have done this sooner, right? I mean, that's the result, isn't it?
I hear that every time, and the older women are praising the young girls who come saying, "Oh my God, you had so much courage. I wish I had done this sooner. It would have saved me years of torture." You know, and it is a torture. That's why the attempts to compensate are so fretful and so and like energy sapping, to just
Yeah.
not have that peace of soul, mind, and a reconciliation of the moral and the spiritual injury that it is, and that everybody listening deserves that. Their loved ones deserve that. They're good people, and they've suffered a lot. And I think that when they count the cost of their suffering, that is something. You're absolutely right, Janet. It's the greatest regret that I didn't do this sooner.
Right. Yeah. Of course, it's the website again, brothers and sisters, is rachelsvineyard.org. Make sure you check it out. So, Teresa, I know the last time we spoke, you spoke about Pope Francis giving you the Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval on the Rachel's Vineyard Retreat program. But there's a saint also who gave you a Good Housekeeping Seal of Approval, right? Someone who I know inspired you greatly as you formulated this whole retreat program, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, of course, as we like to call it, Mother Teresa. Do you want to share with us the endorsement you received from Mother Teresa?
Oh, I'd love to. Do I have time for a little context, or do I just
Yes,
share
go
the
ahead.
message?
Yes, no, go
Okay.
ahead.
So
Give us the context.
the context was that I was always pro-life, and I know she was, and all her beautiful writings about the unborn and whatnot. And I wanted to write to her to ask if she would read Rachel's Vineyard Manual and write an endorsement. That might have sounded like a bold thing, like Mother Teresa's very busy, but I just felt like I wanted her to see this. And so I sent it to Calcutta, which takes a long time. In the meantime, I had asked all these, I had asked some other people to review it, and one of them was my own bishop. Um, And after waiting a couple months, I got a letter back from our bishop that said he was too busy and he didn't have time to review the manual. And so I was kind of like, oh, I want some support for the church to see that this is a beautiful and good thing. So I was really, really discouraged. And the very next day, I get a handwritten letter from Mother Teresa, and I'll read it to you right now. And it was so affirming. And I also had to laugh because I thought, oh, the bishop with a staff of, you know, many people to help is too busy. But Mother Teresa, that's dealing with all the death and the dying and everything, she had time, and it just meant so much to me. It was so precious to me. But what she wrote was, "Thank you very much for all that you're doing for God to bring his love and compassion and mercy to those who have had abortions in the past." She said, "I am grateful to God for you and this very beautiful work which you have done. Jesus himself said that he came to call sinners and not the self-righteous. I pray that Rachel's Vineyard may bring God's tender love and compassion to those who need his peace so much. I pray for all those who use it, seeking his peace, that they may open their hearts and allow God to restore them to wholeness and happiness. Let Jesus continue to use you as his instrument by allowing him to love others through you. He will be free to use you in the measure that you are open to him, allowing him to radiate his love through you. And I am praying much for you." And I always share this note with all of our leaders from around the world, the 500,000 volunteers who are engaged in the work of Rachel's Vineyard, because it's God who has lifted them up to be used to share his message of mercy.
That's right. Yeah. Teresa, that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Do you put that letter up on your website? Is it up on your website, or have you done that yet? Teresa? Uh-uh. So what do we do? Let's see if it comes back. And then you could edit this, right? Together? I know. I'll just re-ask her the question when we get her back. I'll ask her, is it on your website, when she clicks back to us. Come on, Teresa, unfreeze.
Something happened to their internet.
Is that what it is? No internet?
Yep.
Ah.
There's a little signal here for their internet signal.
And it showed it was weak?
No, it showed it was gone.
Oh, it gone. Mm.
If you hover over, you can get a score out of 10. Like, you can see what I see now. Network's 10 out of 10. Hers was 0 out of 10.
Will she try to come back in?
I hope so.
Do you have her cell phone number there?
Nope, I can try.
All right. Ask Tracy to get Teresa to get my cell phone on my desk and bring it here, because I will call her. Because we could pick it up from that point. Oh, wait, she's back. She's back. She's back.
She's talking to me. And her internet just dropped off again.
All right.
I was calling
Tell her to get me my cell phone. I'll call her. No, she's frozen again. She's frozen. Yeah, let them grab my cell phone, and we'll call her. Because if
Hey, it's John. Hey, what's happening with your internet? Yeah. Okay, they're still waiting here. Maybe we can. Yeah. Yeah, we stopped it.
she should try to restart her router when that happens.
Okay, have you guys and then it just dropped off.
You should be on now. Do you see us now?
Teresa,
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, so
I'm right here.
It's,
She can't see me.
I'm only getting the very slow video from you guys. Yeah, because I can see what you're.
there's
Sure.
something wrong with your internet signal.
It's on our end,
Yeah. I don't know what's happening.
but I never lost them.
I lost my email a few minutes ago.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's
is
something
it
going on.
back
there.
on now? Can't they see me now?
I think.
Because
Yeah.
I could hear her the whole
Do
time.
we still seem slow?
Yes, slowish. We'll try to continue.
Should I come off and go back on? Log out? Why don't I log?
It has nothing to do with your logging.
It has nothing to do with you logging in or out. It has to do with your internet speed there at the office.
So it seems to be back up.
Okay, yeah, just give me a call again if there's an issue. Okay. Bye. All right, John.
All right, so Teresa, it's very simple. We're going to pick it up with, I was asking you the question, do you have Mother Teresa?
Right.
That I'll just pick it up with, that's a beautiful letter from Mother Teresa. And I was about to ask you, is that letter on your website or not? And you could say yes or no. And then I'm going to go into the next topic, okay?
Okay,
I'm going to talk to you about Judy Garland, some of the stars, okay?
okay.
I know. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to get this quick. Tell me when, John, and I'll start.
Here we go. 5, 4, 3.
Well, Teresa, that was an amazing letter from Mother Teresa. Is that on your website by chance?
I'm sure it's on our website.
Okay, so I encourage everyone to take a look. Well, at the very beginning of the program, Teresa, I kind of teased the audience about someone who sang Over the Rainbow, having an abortion in her past. And of course, I'm talking about Judy Garland. Could you just, because I know you've researched quite a few Hollywood stars, and we could talk about them in future programs. But in Judy Garland's case, what did you find out about Judy Garland?
Well, in this book, Get Happy by Truman Capone, he spoke about an abortion that she had suffered as before she was married. Actually, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm going back in time too much. She was married, her first marriage, and the abortion happened in the context. She got married in 1942 at the age of 20. And one of the reasons that she got married is because she wanted to have a child with her husband, David Rose. And the MGM studios and her mother got really, really upset that she would ruin her burgeoning career because she had already been a star at the age of 17 with Over the Rainbow. Over the Rainbow. The
Wizard of Oz.
And they didn't want to ruin the stardom that she had by having a baby. They just thought that would wreck everything. So they colluded together, her mother and Mr. Mayer of the MGM studios, and forced her to have an abortion. And her mother said that, I'll take care of everything. You can have another baby someday. So what the trauma that she experienced was abandonment and betrayal. And usually when someone suffers the loss of a child in abortion, there's usually a theme that's associated with the trauma and why they had it that they go on to repeat throughout their lives. So one of the things that I did when I give a celebrity profile or a story like that, after I teach about trauma, I'm using, her story to show again and again how she experienced abandonment and betrayal, almost like she's repeating it. That's what we call the traumatic reenactment. So right after her abortion, she developed a sleep disorder. She couldn't sleep. And before that, she was taking uppers because she had to keep going to rehearsals and putting on movies, and they had her on a very demanding, busy schedule. But her weight also dropped to 94 pounds. And we also see anorexia, eating disorders developing after the experience of an abortion. And then she began an affair with Tyrone Powers. He was a film star. And with him, she had a fantasy pregnancy. And he was married. She attached herself to someone who was bound to abandon her. It's kind of like the unconscious, I'm going to go with someone else who's going to hurt me. because you have this need to experience again, not a need, but it's an unconscious drive to master your feelings of helplessness and overcome abandonment. So it's a risky situation at the very least. And she begged him to divorce his wife or she'd be forced to have an abortion, but it was all fantasy. And he took her to a clinic, they gave her a test, and there in the abortion clinic, they said, "You're not pregnant." And she crumbled to the ground, crying, like returning to the scene of the crime, reliving this experience of being able to grieve with somebody there who so again, she experiences this abandonment and betrayal. Then she has another affair. Should I keep going? I don't know how much time you have.
No,
But
that's okay.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to point out, that, Judy Garland, as we know, had a tragic end, of course. She
Yeah.
died of an overdose of drugs and alcohol, because it was the sleeping pills, the uppers and downers, that she just ate like candy through her whole life. But it was very tragic life, and she had the most beautiful, beautiful voice. But abortion crept into her life and just never left. It was constantly haunting her because it never allowed her to heal.
It was.
It's too bad Rachel's Vineyard wasn't around back then. That's all I have to say.
But she
So
wrote
Teresa,
about it. She knew it. She knew it hurt her, and she did write about it.
yeah, she did. She did. Well, I hope many other people who are hurting out there don't delay, like poor Judy Garland did. It ended to be her demise because she couldn't find healing. So let's pray, all of you brothers and sisters out there, that you will find Rachel's Vineyard. Go to rachelsvineyard.org. You'll see where the nearest retreat is, and encourage, whether it's yourself or a family member, do the healing now, because you'll never regret having to get rid of all that trauma and have the joy of the Lord back in your heart. So thank you, Teresa, for joining me today. God bless.
Thanks, Janet.
Well, brothers and sisters, thank you too for joining me on Just Ask Janet. And again, remember, people are out there hurting, and maybe you are the only person that can reach out and encourage them to find that beautiful healing that's available to them. Again, go to rachelsvineyard.org where you can do it today. Thanks, and God bless.